The pharaohs built fortresses of the dead to protect their most dangerous secrets. For centuries we believed these tombs were simply monuments to eternity. But what if their true purpose was far more sinister? This journey uncovers 20 forbidden truths that ancient Egypt never wanted found. You will discover the scientific reality behind the mummy's curse, the hidden chambers still sealed within the Great Pyramid, and the lost technologies that defy explanation. What knowledge was so terrifying it had to be buried with its keepers? What is the one discovery you believe could rewrite history itself? Lord Carnarvon's death was the event that ignited the legend of the mummy's curse. He financed the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, and mere weeks after breaching the inner chamber, he was dead from a mysterious illness. The newspapers of the time whispered of a supernatural vengeance, but science tells a far more chilling story. These tombs were not just sealed with stone, they were sealed for millennia, creating the perfect environment for a biological trap. Inside, undisturbed air allowed ancient bacteria and toxic mold spores to flourish in the darkness. One particularly deadly resident is Aspergillus niger, a black mold that can attack the lungs, causing fever, bleeding, and respiratory collapse. For an explorer like Carnarvon, already in fragile health, a single breath inside that stale, dusty chamber could have been a death sentence. But was this just a natural accident or something more deliberate? Some researchers point to the presence of radioactive materials like uranium ore, which has been found in other Egyptian burial sites. The ancient priests, masters of chemistry and preservation, would have understood the sickening power of certain powders and sealed stones. They might not have called it radiation or toxicology, but they knew how to build a tomb that defended itself. Modern analyses of sealed spaces reveal atmospheres thick with ammonia, formaldehyde, and other preservatives that are lethal to inhale. So the curse was real, but it was not magic. It was a sophisticated, terrifyingly effective security system designed by the world's first bioengineers. This leads us to a deeper question about the second secret, one hidden not in the air but in the very stone. These biological traps were not left to chance. They were the calculated work of priests who understood the raw power of decay. Imagine placing piles of rotting organic matter, specific types of fungus, and even animal remains into sealed side chambers before the final tomb was closed. Over centuries, the slow decomposition of these materials would release a cocktail of lethal gases. Hydrogen sulfide, a byproduct of organic breakdown, is deadly even in small concentrations, and it carries the unmistakable scent of rotten eggs, a warning that would have long since faded by the time a modern excavator broke through. Then there are the spores. Modern studies of ancient sealed environments have identified bacteria like the potentially fatal Bacillus anthracis, which causes anthrax, and the fungus Aspergillus flavus, a producer of aflatoxin, one of the most potent natural carcinogens known. These microorganisms can enter a dormant state, surviving for thousands of years in the dry, dark stillness, waiting for a rush of fresh air and a human host. The very act of unsealing a tomb was the trigger. A stone door shifted, a seal broken, and the sudden change in air pressure would have aerosolized this ancient dust, sending a cloud of invisible pathogens directly into the faces of the first people to enter. The so-called curse manifested as a swift, mysterious illness that doctors of the 1920s had no hope of diagnosing. A fever would spike, the lungs would fill with fluid, and the body would succumb to a poison it could not fight. It was a security system with a timed release, a final, breathable barrier protecting the pharaoh's deepest secrets. This raises a chilling possibility. If the air itself was a weapon, what other unseen dangers were waiting in the stone? The very stone of the pyramid guards its own secrets. While the air in the tombs was a biological trap, the Great Pyramid of Giza itself is a labyrinth of stone-concealing spaces we are only just beginning to detect. For centuries, we believed its known chambers, the king's chamber and the queen's chamber, represented the full extent of its interior. but modern technology has shattered that belief. An international scientific collaboration known as the Scan Pyramids Project has peered deep into the monument's heart using cosmic rays. This technique, called muon tomography, allows scientists to see through solid stone much like an X-ray sees through flesh. What they found was staggering. High above the Grand Gallery, they detected a massive cathedral-like space now called the Big Void. This chamber is over 100 feet long, a vast emptiness hidden within one of the most studied structures on Earth, and it has remained sealed for over 4,500 years. Then there is a second, smaller void behind the north face of the pyramid, another inaccessible space whose purpose is a complete mystery. What could these forbidden chambers hold? Is the king's chamber we know merely a decoy, and the true resting place of the pharaoh Khufu lies within this hidden void, still untouched and protected? Or could it be something more profound, a repository of the very lost knowledge the pharaohs sought to preserve? Perhaps it contains records of technologies we have forgotten, or artifacts that would rewrite our understanding of their civilization. The most tantalizing and frustrating fact is that these chambers remain completely unexplored. No camera has ever seen inside, no human hand has ever touched their walls. They are the ultimate forbidden secret, physically present but utterly inaccessible, a permanent question mark carved into the heart of a wonder of the ancient world. And this stone fortress is not the only one with more to hide. The stone walls themselves hold a mystery in plain sight. Walk into any major tomb in the Valley of the Kings, and you are greeted by a breathtaking spectacle of color. Vivid blues, deep reds, and brilliant whites cover the walls in intricate scenes that look as if they were painted yesterday. This is no accident of preservation. The durability of these colors, surviving for over 3,000 years in near-perfect condition, is a technological marvel that modern chemistry cannot fully explain. We know the common sources for some pigments. Egyptian blue, for instance, was a synthetic pigment made from silica, copper, and calcium. Yet the specific, almost luminous version found in the most sacred tombs has properties science struggles to replicate. It is not just a color, it is a material that emits light in the infrared spectrum, a hidden characteristic with no clear artistic purpose. Then there is the red. In many tombs, a particular shade of red ochre remains as vibrant as the day it was applied, while other known ancient reds fade to a dull brown. The secret may lie in the source. Some researchers suggest the priests used uniquely processed minerals, perhaps even grinding stones that contain trace amounts of radioactive elements like uranium or thorium. This would have acted as a natural preservative, killing the microbes and fungi that would normally break down a pigment over centuries. Think of it as a built-in antimicrobial coating, a way to make the sacred art eternal. The knowledge of how to source, mix, and apply these substances was likely a protected secret of the priestly class, a form of sacred chemistry passed down through generations. This was not merely a recipe for paint, it was a formula for eternity. When that lineage of masters died out, the exact methods were lost forever. We are left with the stunning results, but not the instructions. This deliberate secrecy makes you wonder what other lost arts were used not just for decoration, but for active protection. That same artistry covering the tomb walls reveals a symbol of terrifying power, one that adorned the very brow of the pharaoh. The uraeus, the stylized cobra always seen rising from the royal crown, is traditionally explained as a protective emblem, a sign of divine authority meant to strike fear into the king's enemies. But this interpretation may only scratch the surface of a far more dangerous truth. The serpent was not merely a symbol of protection, it was a literal warning of a mastered and lethal force. The ancient Egyptian priests were not just artists and architects, they were the world's first master toxicologists. They possessed an intimate, practical knowledge of the venoms harvested from creatures like the Egyptian cobra and the horned viper. They understood that in a tiny dose, a neurotoxin could induce a trance-like state, a bridge to the divine used in secret rituals. In a slightly larger dose, it could paralyze, and in a full dose, it brought swift and untraceable death. This knowledge was a forbidden secret, a double-edged sword that could heal or assassinate with terrifying precision. The uraeus on the pharaoh's crown was therefore a bold declaration. It stated that the ruler held the ultimate power over life and death, wielding a natural weapon so potent that its very image commanded obedience. Historical accounts and medical papyri hint at this dark expertise. They describe procedures for treating snake bites, but also for extracting and preserving venoms. A political rival falling ill after a banquet, a high priest dying mysteriously in his sleep. These events could easily be attributed to a curse or a god's displeasure. In reality, they may have been the silent, successful work of a royal poisoner, an agent using a weapon that left no mark and whose effects were indistinguishable from natural illness. The serpent was thus the perfect symbol, representing both the visible authority of the throne and the invisible, chemical power that truly secured it. This mastery over toxins suggests they were guarding something even more volatile than poison, a knowledge that could not be written down but had to be physically protected. The silent stone of these tombs holds an unexpected power, one that is not seen but heard, or perhaps not heard at all. Within the confines of the Great Pyramid's King's Chamber, a strange acoustic phenomenon occurs. If you were to stand in that granite-lined room and speak, your voice would not simply echo, it would resonate, the sound waves amplifying and lingering in the air with an unnatural clarity. This is not a random effect of the architecture. The chamber's dimensions and the specific properties of its stone were calculated to create a perfect resonance chamber. The ancient builders were not just stonemasons, they were masters of sound. They may have understood that certain frequencies, particularly very low ones known as infrasound, are below the range of human hearing but not below our ability to feel. These vibrations can physically affect the human body, causing sensations of unease, profound dread, or even visions. In a sacred ritual, a priest chanting at a specific pitch could fill the entire chamber with this invisible energy, using the very structure of the pyramid to generate a force that altered the minds of everyone inside. The experience would have been terrifying and transformative. Participants might feel a sudden coldness, a pressure in their chest, or an overwhelming sense of a divine presence, all engineered by the room itself. This was a forbidden acoustic technology, a way to manufacture a spiritual encounter. It explains why these spaces feel so different from ordinary rooms, why the air itself seems to hum with a silent power. The purpose was control, to create an undeniable link between the pharaoh's authority and the awe of the gods. If sound could be weaponized to open the mind, what other energies were these structures designed to channel? The silent hum of the pyramid's chambers connects to a far grander design, one that stretches beyond the stone into the heavens themselves. We all know the basic fact that the pyramids are aligned with the stars, but this common knowledge hides a forbidden truth. The precision of these alignments is so exact that it suggests a purpose far greater than a simple stellar map for the dead. These structures were not just tombs, they were components of a colossal astronomical clock, one designed to track time on a scale we can barely comprehend. The three pyramids of Giza are a near-perfect mirror of the three stars in Orion's belt, but the correlation goes much deeper. The ancient Egyptians observed a slow, cyclical wobble in the Earth's rotation, a 26,000-year cycle known as the precession of the equinoxes. This gradual shift changes which star appears as the North Star over millennia, and it also alters the precise position where constellations rise on the horizon. The layout of the Giza Plateau, along with the shafts leading from the king's chamber pointing directly to specific stars like Sirius and Orion, seems to encode this grand cycle. Why would a civilization so concerned with the afterlife invest such incredible effort in tracking a celestial event that takes 26,000 years to complete? The forbidden secret is that they were not just looking back, they were calculating forward. The priests, the master astronomers, may have used this clock to predict future cosmic events, alignments, or even potential cataclysms that they believed were cyclical. They saw time as a repeating loop, and by understanding the patterns of the past, they could foresee the challenges of the future. This knowledge of coming ages, of great upheavals or a new golden era, was considered far too dangerous for the general population. It was a truth that could shatter social order, incite panic, or rob people of their purpose if they knew what was destined to come. So this prophetic astronomy was locked away, not in a scroll, but in the immutable geometry of the world's most enduring monuments. The pyramids stand as a silent countdown to a future event, a message in stone and sky that we are only now beginning to decipher. What future moment were they counting down to, and what were they so afraid would happen when the clock finally reached zero? This celestial clockwork points to a lineage of rulers who considered themselves divine. But what if their very bodies held a secret that challenges that divinity? The forbidden knowledge locked within royal mummies is not just in their tombs, but in their DNA. Modern science now possesses the tools to unlock these genetic secrets, yet the path to such discovery is fiercely guarded. The Egyptian authorities, along with many prominent archaeologists, have been historically reluctant to permit widespread genetic testing on these ancient remains. Their stated reasons are often rooted in respect for the dead and a desire to preserve the fragile physical integrity of the mummies. But one must wonder if there is a deeper, more unsettling motivation. What if the DNA of the pharaohs contains a truth so disruptive it could unravel the very foundation of ancient Egyptian history? Imagine uncovering evidence of profound genetic disorders that were carefully hidden by the priesthood. The peculiar physical depictions of some pharaohs with elongated skulls, enlarged hips, or feminine features, long explained as artistic convention, might instead be accurate representations of hereditary conditions. A lineage plagued by incest to keep the bloodline pure could have resulted in a host of ailments that the priests managed through their advanced, but ultimately limited, medical knowledge. The power of the pharaoh relied on his image as a perfect, invincible god-king. Revealing that he suffered from a debilitating genetic illness would have shattered that illusion and undermined the entire political and religious order. This leads to an even more controversial possibility. Could the priesthood have attempted a primitive form of genetic manipulation? We know they practiced selective breeding among royalty. Did they also use their knowledge of herbs, toxins, and rituals in an attempt to influence or weed out certain traits in the royal line? The results would have been unpredictable, perhaps creating the very disorders they sought to eliminate. Unlocking these genetic codes could reveal a history of biological experimentation, a forbidden science that was buried with its subjects. The hesitation to test may be about protecting not just the dignity of the dead, but the legacy of an entire civilization. It is a choice between preserving a magnificent myth or confronting a potentially flawed and far more human reality. And if their blood holds such dangerous truths, what then of the artifacts they were buried with, objects that seem to defy their time? The genetic flaws hidden within a pharaoh's body point to a deeper truth, a lost wellspring of knowledge that once guided their entire civilization. This brings us to the legend of Imhotep. History remembers him as the genius architect of the first pyramid, the step pyramid of Djoser, but his true legacy was far greater. He was a polymath, a master physician, a high priest, and a sage whose wisdom was considered divine. Centuries after his death, he was worshipped as a god. Yet, for a figure of such immense importance, his physical tomb has never been found. This is no ordinary archaeological oversight. The forbidden secret is that Imhotep's greatest treasure was not his own mummy, but his library. Imagine a complete repository containing the original, unfiltered designs for pyramid construction, advanced medical procedures that rivaled early modern science, and astronomical charts mapping cycles we are only now rediscovering. This was knowledge considered far too potent, too dangerous for the common world. So where did it go? The most compelling theory suggests it was hidden, sealed away by a priesthood determined to protect their power. The perfect vault would not be a separate tomb, but a secret chamber constructed deep within the foundations of his own greatest creation, the step pyramid at Saqqara. The labyrinthine tunnels and chambers beneath that structure are still not fully mapped. Modern ground-penetrating radar has hinted at anomalies, voids that do not correspond to any known blueprint. These could be the sealed doors to Imhotep's forbidden library. What truths might those scrolls contain? Perhaps they hold the master principles of acoustic engineering used in the Great Pyramid, or the chemical formulas for the eternal paints that still adorn tomb walls. They might detail surgical techniques or understandings of human anatomy that should have been impossible for their time. The loss of this library represents the greatest intellectual catastrophe of the ancient world. The subsequent decline in Egyptian architectural and scientific precision is not a coincidence. It is the direct result of this foundational knowledge being deliberately buried, leaving future generations to imitate the forms of their ancestors without understanding the core science behind them. The secret chamber of Imhotep is not just a missing tomb, it is a missing key to human history. If such a library were ever found, would we be ready for the truths it forces us to confront about our own past? Beneath the weight of the pyramids lies a secret that flows with the power of water. While we gaze up at their monumental peaks, the true mystery may be hidden deep underground. The Giza Plateau is not a solid block of limestone. It is a Swiss cheese of subterranean tunnels and aquifers. Mainstream archaeology has long dismissed these as natural fissures or simple drainage channels to handle the rare desert downpour. But the scale and precision of some of these features tell a different story. There is compelling evidence for man-made tunnels, carefully carved shafts that connect to the water table deep below, channels that seem to mirror the path of the Nile River itself. This was not mere plumbing. Imagine a vast, hidden circulatory system built beneath the pharaoh's feet. The forbidden theory is that this was a sophisticated hydraulic engine. One purpose could have been ritualistic. The Nile was the lifeblood of Egypt, and the dead pharaoh's spirit was believed to travel on its waters to the afterlife. Creating a symbolic, subterranean Nile directly under his tomb would have been the ultimate act of sacred engineering, a way to magically propel his soul to the stars. But the practical applications are even more intriguing. The Great Pyramid's interior maintains a remarkably constant temperature, one that defies the scorching heat of the desert above. Could a network of water-filled tunnels have acted as a massive geothermal heat sink, cooling the interior chambers through a passive exchange of energy? Water flowing deep underground would remain at a stable, cool temperature, and the pyramid's structure could have been designed to draw that coolness upward, preserving the delicate conditions needed for the pharaoh's journey and for any organic materials or technologies left with him. This points to a knowledge of hydroengineering and thermodynamics that seems impossibly advanced. Were the ancient priests not just astronomers and toxicologists, but also master geologists who could harness the Earth's own energy? The most forbidden idea is that this water system was part of something greater, a lost technology that used the flow of water and the resonance of stone in concert, generating a form of energy we can no longer perceive. If the pyramids were power plants, as some controversial theorists suggest, then water would have been an essential component, a conductor or a coolant for a process we have entirely forgotten. The evidence is there, waiting in the dark, silent passages flooded for millennia. What other secrets have we missed because we refuse to look down? The vibrant colors on the tomb walls serve a purpose far deeper than decoration. They are the visual component of a language that holds a second, hidden layer of meaning. We can translate the hieroglyphs to read prayers and names, but this common translation is merely the surface text, a story for the public. The high priesthood operated with a far more sophisticated system, a coded language embedded within the sacred script itself. This was their method for transmitting forbidden knowledge, hiding it in plain sight across the walls of the most sacred tombs. Think of it not as a single message, but as a palimpsest where a deeper truth is written beneath the obvious one. A single symbol, like the ankh representing life, might also function as a mathematical constant in a geometric formula when placed in a specific sequence. A depiction of the god Thoth, the divine scribe, could be a marker indicating that the surrounding text contains encoded astronomical data, perhaps the precise timing of a planetary alignment or the coordinates of a star. The arrangement of figures, the repetition of certain glyphs, and even the specific colors used could all form part of a complex cipher. This was not a code meant to be broken by outsiders, but a shared, secret language for the initiated. It allowed the priesthood to record the most dangerous elements of their knowledge, the true mechanics of a ritual designed to manipulate consciousness using sound, the chemical composition of a toxin, or the architectural stresses of a hidden chamber, without fear of it being understood by the common populace or a future invader. They could inscribe the complete instructions for a lost technology directly onto a pharaoh's sarcophagus, knowing that only another high priest trained in the same esoteric system would ever be able to read it. This transforms every tomb from a simple monument into a potential library of encrypted secrets. The forbidden knowledge was never truly lost. It was simply written in a language we have only just begun to suspect exists. What profound truths are we still missing simply because we are reading the words without understanding the code? That coded language of the priests was meant to protect more than just formulas and star charts. It also guarded the secret of objects that should not exist. Within the golden confines of Tutankhamun's tomb, Howard Carter discovered a dagger that defied all historical logic. Its blade was made of iron, a metal so rare and precious in the Bronze Age that it was considered more valuable than gold. Yet this was not the crude, brittle iron of early smiths. The blade was finely crafted, strong, and showed almost no signs of corrosion after more than 3,000 years. The forbidden secret here is not the object itself, but its origin. Modern X-ray fluorescence analysis confirmed a truth that seems pulled from myth. The iron in that dagger came from the stars, forged in the heart of a supernova and delivered to Earth as a meteorite. The ancient Egyptians called this metal iron from the sky, and they viewed it as a divine substance, but this leads to a deeper, more unsettling question. How did they possess the technology to work it? Meteoritic iron is notoriously difficult to smelt and shape. It requires a level of temperature control and hammering technique that should have been impossible for Bronze Age metalworkers. The existence of this perfect, corrosion-resistant blade suggests a lost metallurgical art, a specialized knowledge of working with extraterrestrial metals that was the exclusive domain of the highest priesthood. This was not a one-time accident. Other tombs have yielded similar anomalies, like the fine, rust-free copper tools found at the Great Pyramid, tools that seem to possess a purity and durability that later civilizations struggled to replicate. The forbidden idea is that this knowledge was deliberately suppressed. A priesthood that controlled the supply and working of divine sky iron held immense power. If every smith could forge such weapons and tools, their unique authority would vanish. So the techniques were kept secret, passed down in whispers, and perhaps encoded in those hieroglyphs, only to be lost when that line of masters was broken. This points to a civilization far more connected and advanced than we thought, possessing secrets of material science that we are only now, in the modern era, beginning to rediscover. If they could master metal from the stars, what other impossible technologies might they have left behind, hidden not in plain sight but deep beneath the sand? The Great Sphinx gazes eastward with a silent, knowing stare that has weathered millennia. This iconic monument, long attributed to the pharaoh Khufu around 2500 BC, holds secrets that challenge our entire timeline of history. The first forbidden clue lies not in its face but in its body. Geologists have pointed to the deep, vertical weathering patterns covering the Sphinx's limestone core. This is not the work of wind and sand, which erode horizontally, but of heavy, sustained rainfall, water that poured down its flanks for centuries. The last time the Giza Plateau experienced a climate wet enough to cause such erosion ended over 7,000 years ago, pushing the Sphinx's origins thousands of years further back than official history allows. This suggests the statue is a relic from a lost epoch, a pre-pharaonic civilization that mastered stone carving long before the first dynasties rose. But the deeper secret is not just its age, it is what lies beneath its pores. Seismic surveys and ground-penetrating radar have consistently revealed anomalies directly below the Sphinx. The data paints a picture of hollow spaces, man-made chambers, and tunnel systems that lead deep into the bedrock. One prominent void, located directly between the pores and extending downward, is large enough to be a significant room. These are not natural caves. The forbidden theory, whispered in esoteric texts and championed by rogue archaeologists, is that the Sphinx is the guardian. It protects the entrance to a legendary hall of records, a vast underground library said to contain the complete knowledge of that advanced precursor civilization. Imagine a repository holding the true history of humanity, the origins of their astronomy, the blueprints for their impossible engineering, and perhaps even an account of the cataclysm that wiped their world away. The Egyptian authorities have systematically blocked deep excavation around the Sphinx, citing preservation concerns. Yet one must wonder if the real reason for the hesitation is fear, a fear of finding a truth so profound it would render our textbooks obsolete. The Sphinx does not just keep its own secrets, it stands as a silent sentinel over a lost world's final message. What forgotten chapter of human existence is waiting to be read in the darkness below? The sacred rituals of the priests were not just fueled by faith, but by chemistry. Modern residue analysis performed on ancient artifacts and mummy hair has uncovered traces of potent psychoactive plants, including blue water lily and a form of acacia known to contain powerful hallucinogenic compounds. This was not recreational, it was a meticulously controlled spiritual technology. The forbidden secret was that the priesthood used these substances as a precise tool to dismantle ordinary perception and force open a gateway to what they interpreted as the divine realm. In the inner sanctum, far from the public eye, a high priest would ingest a carefully measured brew. His consciousness would detach, the stone walls of the temple seeming to dissolve into swirling patterns and vivid, waking dreams. In this state, he would receive visions and messages directly from the gods, issuing prophecies and decrees that would shape the fate of the kingdom. This practice explains the bizarre and fantastical imagery found in sacred texts and tomb art, creatures with animal heads and human bodies, beings of pure light, and landscapes that defy the laws of nature. These were not mere fantasies, they were reported encounters from a chemically induced frontier, the knowledge of which plants to use, their correct dosages, and the rituals to guide the experience was a closely guarded secret of the highest order. A mistake in the mixture could lead to madness or a fatal overdose, so this power was entrusted only to the most elite initiates. It was a form of controlled spiritual hacking, a way to bypass the limitations of the mortal mind and commune directly with the forces that governed their universe. This raises a profound question. Were these priests truly speaking to gods, or were they simply exploring the vast, uncharted territory of the human brain, interpreting its chemical symphony as divine communication? The answer remains one of history's greatest mysteries, locked within the very biology of the mummies themselves. The fourth canopic jar held the intestines, an organ seemingly less noble than the heart or lungs. Yet its preservation was treated with a distinct and mysterious reverence. while the lungs, liver, and stomach were each placed under the protection of one of Horus's 4 sons. The intestines were guarded by Ubiquitous, a jackal-headed god. This specific pairing hints at a deeper, hidden purpose. The common explanation is that the removal of perishable organs was simply a practical step to prevent decay, but the ritual suggests something more. The intestines, responsible for digestion and the processing of waste, were also seen as the seat of base instincts and hidden emotions. The forbidden theory is that the priests performed a secret embalming ritual on this specific organ, one involving a now unknown substance or incantation. This special treatment was believed to purify the individual's raw, earthly nature, transforming the vessel of primal urges into a cleansed conduit for the soul's final test. This test was the weighing of the heart ceremony. The heart was placed on a scale against the feather of truth, but what if the intestines, now spiritually sanitized, played a crucial, unspoken role in this judgment? If the heart was found heavy with sin, it would be devoured. A purified intestinal tract, however, could have been conceptualized as a safe pathway for the soul's essence to escape judgment and continue its journey, a backup plan for the afterlife engineered by the cunning priests. This was a ritual too sacred and perhaps too dangerous to be written down in any common funerary text. Its secrets died with the master embalmers, leaving behind only 4 jars and a lingering question about what precise magic was used to prepare the most human part of us for the divine. The vibrant colors and hidden codes of the tomb walls were not the work of the pharaohs themselves, but of a secretive and highly skilled community living in isolation. Nestled in a remote valley, the village of Deir el-Medina housed the artisans, painters, and stonemasons responsible for creating these eternal homes for the kings. Forbidden from speaking of their work, these men and their families formed a society within a society, bound by oaths of silence that were as strong as the stone they carved. They possessed the master blueprint for every trap, every hidden chamber, and every secret passage they constructed. This was the ultimate forbidden knowledge, the practical mechanics of the pharaoh's security, and it was far too dangerous to be allowed to spread. The secret was not just in the design, but in the execution. They knew which stone, when cut at a precise angle and set under a specific stress, would trigger a collapse. They understood the exact mortar mix that would look solid but crumble after 1,000 years, releasing a biological trap. This was not theoretical knowledge passed down on papyrus. It was a hands-on craft, a tactile understanding of physics and deception that lived in their fingertips. And they took an unbreakable vow, a pact sealed not with a document, but with a shared understanding that revealing these secrets meant the certain death of their entire community and the desecration of their life's work. When a master builder died, the most critical techniques died with him, whispered only to a chosen apprentice at the very end. This deliberate fragmentation of knowledge was their final, most brilliant security measure. The true architectural secrets of the pyramids and the Valley of the Kings were not lost to time. They were voluntarily erased by the only people who ever truly knew them. Their silent pact ensured that the pharaoh's treasures would remain forever guarded, even from the future. The silent stones of the Great Pyramid may have been more than a tomb, they might have been a power source. Recent scientific studies have moved this idea from pure speculation into a realm of fascinating possibility. Researchers constructed a model of the Great Pyramid and exposed it to electromagnetic fields, specifically radio waves. They discovered something astonishing. The pyramid's unique geometry causes it to concentrate and focus that electromagnetic energy, not at its peak, but within its hidden chambers and deep within its base. The king's chamber and these newly discovered voids act as resonant cavities, gathering and amplifying this invisible energy from the environment. This is not magic, it is physics. The pyramid's shape and the specific materials used, like the granite in the king's chamber which contains quartz crystals, interact with the Earth's own natural energies. Granite is a piezoelectric material, meaning it generates a small electrical charge under mechanical stress, such as the subtle seismic vibrations constantly rippling through the planet. The forbidden idea is that the ancient builders understood these principles on a practical level. They may not have called it electromagnetic resonance or piezoelectricity, but they knew how to build a structure that could harvest it. What was this energy used for? Perhaps it was a form of spiritual technology intended to energize the pharaoh's mummy on a quantum level, aiding his transformation into a divine being. Or more practically, it could have powered a now-lost piece of technology placed within the inner chambers. Imagine a ritual object, a crystal or a metal rod, positioned at the exact focal point of this concentrated energy, glowing with a faint, otherworldly light. This would explain why the pyramid is so incredibly precise. A simple tomb does not require such perfect alignment and such specific materials. An energy-conducting machine, however, absolutely does. The pyramid stands as a testament to a forgotten science, a device built to tap into the very pulse of the earth itself. If the stones could channel power, what other forces were the priests attempting to master in the darkness of their sealed sanctuaries? Gold has a way of blinding men to danger, but some treasures were never meant to be found. The whispers that echo through the Valley of the Kings tell not only of pharaohs, but of the thieves who dared to steal from them. While most sought jewels and gold, a rare few stumbled upon something far worse. Their stories are not of wealth, but of ruin. One persistent legend speaks of a group of robbers in the late 19th century who broke into a side chamber of a royal tomb not on any official map. They did not find golden statues or alabaster jars. Instead, they found a sealed chest made of an unknown dark wood. Forcing it open, they discovered neither gold nor jewels, but a collection of scrolls, their pages filled with diagrams of stars and mechanical devices that made no sense, alongside a single, palm-sized black stone that was unnaturally warm to the touch. The thieves, disappointed and superstitious, argued. One wanted to sell the strange finds to a European collector. Another, more terrified, insisted they were cursed. The story goes that in a fit of panic, they burned the scrolls, their ancient papyrus turning to ash in minutes. But the stone they kept. The man who pocketed it was said to have suffered from violent nightmares and a creeping paranoia that consumed him. Within a month, he was found dead in his home, the black stone resting on his chest. His companions, one by one, met with similar fates, their deaths always preceded by claims of hearing whispers in an empty room and seeing shadows that moved against the wall. Were these just the ravings of guilty minds, or did they unlock a knowledge so destabilizing it shattered their grip on reality? Another tale tells of a robber who claimed to have found a small, metallic orb in a hidden niche behind a statue. He described it as perfectly smooth, humming with a faint, almost musical vibration. He brought it to a black market dealer in Cairo, who reportedly touched it once and refused to have it in his shop, saying it made the air feel heavy and cold. The robber, now frightened and unable to sell his prize, supposedly threw it into the Nile in the dead of night. He was later found wandering the streets, incoherent, muttering about doors in the sky and a light that spoke. These stories are the forbidden folklore of archaeology, dismissed as superstition, yet they share a common thread. It was never the gold that destroyed these men. It was the artifacts that defied explanation, the knowledge that challenged their understanding of the world itself. The tombs were not just protected by traps of stone and toxin, but by truths that the human mind was not prepared to hold. What did those scrolls actually say, and what power did that warm, black stone possess? The silence of the robbers is as profound as the silence of the pharaohs, leaving us to wonder if some doors, once opened, should have been left forever closed. The silent geometry of the pyramids points skyward, but the true target was not a constellation, but a single, specific star at a precise moment in time. This goes far beyond a simple map of the heavens. The forbidden secret of tomb orientation is that it functioned as a celestial launch pad for the pharaoh's consciousness. The ancient priests were not just astronomers, they were architects of the soul's journey. They believed that at the moment of the king's death, his essence, his ba, needed a clear and direct pathway to escape the earthly realm. The tomb's entrance shafts, aligned with breathtaking accuracy to stars like Sirius or Orion's belt, were not symbolic gestures. They were engineered conduits designed to capture the light and energy of that particular star at the exact time of the pharaoh's passing. Think of it as a form of ancient astrophysics, a belief that the soul could be transmitted, guided by stellar energy to a designated cosmic location. This was a literal navigation system for an invisible voyage. The precision involved is staggering. The alignment had to be perfect because the window for this cosmic transfer was believed to be fleeting. If the soul missed its celestial connection, it was thought to risk becoming lost in the void, a fate worse than physical death. This explains the obsessive attention to detail in the tomb's construction. A misalignment of a single degree was not an architectural error, it was a spiritual catastrophe. The priesthood guarded this knowledge because it granted them ultimate control over the pharaoh's destiny, even after his heart was weighed on the scales. They held the keys to the stars themselves, promising a guaranteed passage to the afterlife in exchange for absolute loyalty in life. This concept of a guided soul transmission forces us to reconsider their entire worldview. They saw the cosmos not as a distant, impersonal clock, but as an active, navigable ocean of energy. Their tombs were not just monuments, they were the first spacecraft built to launch a human consciousness on a journey across the universe. What destination were they aiming for, and what did they believe was waiting for the pharaoh at the end of that star-lit path? That celestial navigation system required a foundation, a point of origin for the soul's great journey. But the very beginning of that sacred tradition is a void in the desert, a silence more profound than any curse. The tombs of the first pharaohs, the kings of the first and second dynasties, are the ultimate cold case of archaeology. While the grand pyramids of Giza are world famous, the burial places of the founders of Egyptian civilization remain elusive, either completely lost or deliberately left unexcavated. We have identified their general location in the vast royal necropolis at Abydos, a place of immense spiritual power. Yet these early tombs are not towering monuments of stone, but subterranean labyrinths, complex palaces carved deep into the earth. They are hidden in plain sight, and the official reasoning for leaving them mostly untouched often cites their fragility and a need for better technology. But this practical explanation feels incomplete. What if the hesitation is driven by a more profound, unspoken fear? What if these earliest tombs hold the original, uncensored blueprint of Egypt? The knowledge sealed within them would not be the refined, politically sanctioned version of history crafted by later dynasties. It would be the raw, primal source code. Imagine uncovering the initial religious beliefs before they were systematized by a powerful priesthood. Perhaps the first pharaohs were not considered gods in the later, rigid sense, but something else entirely: powerful shamans or chieftains who communed directly with forces of nature. Their tombs might contain artifacts and texts depicting a much closer, more chaotic relationship with the divine, one that was later cleaned up and codified to consolidate power for the state. The forbidden question is whether these tombs also contain the pure forms of the lost technologies we have been piecing together. The advanced acoustic principles, the mastery of chemistry, the understanding of celestial mechanics. What if these were not gradual discoveries of the Old Kingdom, but were inherited from an even more ancient source? The architectural precision of the Great Pyramid seems to appear out of nowhere. What if its secrets are merely a faded copy of a foundational knowledge that lies buried at Abydos? The first pharaohs may have been buried with the original instructions, the master texts that later generations could only imitate but never fully comprehend. To open these tombs would be to look directly into the birth of a civilization, to see the truth before it was edited by time, politics, and the calculated secrecy of the priesthoods that followed. It would force a rewriting of history not from the top down, but from the very bottom, from the very first stone laid in the sand. And if the origin holds such power, what does that say about the civilization's ultimate end and the final secret that connects its beginning to its mysterious collapse? This final secret is the reason for all the others. The pharaohs never truly died. Every trap, every curse, every hidden chamber and coded message was not merely to protect a body, but to safeguard a conscious, eternal presence. The elaborate mummification was not just preservation, it was a recalibration of the physical form to serve as a permanent vessel. The tomb itself was not a sealed crypt, but an operational headquarters for an immortal king. Imagine the belief that the pharaoh's spirit, his Ka, remained fully awake and aware within the silent darkness, perceiving the passage of centuries as we perceive days. He was not sleeping, he was waiting. His consciousness, amplified by the pyramid's energy and sustained by the sacred rituals, became the eternal guardian of his kingdom's most dangerous truths. He was the final, unbreachable security system. This explains the sheer, obsessive effort put into making these tombs impenetrable. It was not about stopping robbers from taking gold. It was about preventing anyone from disturbing a god who was still on duty. The ultimate forbidden knowledge was that the boundary between life and death for these divine rulers was not a wall, but a door they had learned to keep open. The pharaoh achieved a state of conscious immortality, a perpetual vigil from within a fortress of stone, ensuring that the mysteries buried with him would remain mysteries forever. What would such an eternal mind witness over 3,000 years? What does it know of our world that we have forgotten? The final, unspoken question is not what was hidden in the tomb, but who is still in there, silently watching. These 20 forbidden secrets weave together a portrait of a civilization that was far more than just pyramids and golden artifacts. They reveal a society of scientist priests who mastered biological traps using ancient bacteria and toxic molds, engineered stone chambers to manipulate sound and consciousness, and encoded dangerous knowledge within their very art. They worked metals from the stars, aligned their monuments with a celestial clock spanning 26,000 years, and may have even attempted to influence the royal bloodline itself. Their understanding of biology, physics, and the human mind rivaled, and in some ways perhaps even surpassed our own, not through brute technology, but through a profound synergy with the natural world. They were not just building tombs, they were constructing fortresses for truths they deemed too powerful for the world. The sands of Egypt still hold their secrets close. What do you think is the most terrifying truth still buried there? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe as we continue to unravel history's greatest mysteries.